I thought I would give some of my personal thoughts on the quartering because I've seen just how many people are like enthusiastic about the Kino Casino coverage, and considering I'm a content creator myself, I thought that I might as well like come out and address my thoughts on the situation and what's been happening and just kind of like the ramifications of this, because it does kind of feel like Jeremy is downward spiraling. Okay, he is not capable of maintaining his business. He's not capable of salvaging his reputation. He's not capable of winning back his fans. He's more interested in just kind of like protecting his ego and just go after anybody who's making fun of him. I suppose that's just the kind of person that like is drawn to a content creation career, because we see this happen like over and over and over again. Like anybody with any like amount of like influence or like relevancy on the platform just somehow tend to abuse it to like go after their fans and like cause problems for other people. In Jeremy's case, he's flagging down videos that make fun of him. And I think more than anything else, that's kind of what's like driven such interest in his channel and driven such interest in his decline, is that like he is acting out, he is getting upset, he is raging, he's coping and seething, he has like autistic rage. Okay, like he's freaking out about this, and there's just nothing he can do, even with like his YouTube connections and his ability to just kind of like strike down channels seemingly at will. Like what we're seeing is that like it's not possible for him to take down every channel, and that's led to like the rise of channels like my own, who post all the quartering clips on Kino Casino. That's led to like other channels doing the same thing, and it's led to like other major YouTubers doing entire documentaries about his downfall. But like I think it's very important to like know that like this is just the end result of a decade long grift, okay? Because Jeremy was always like this, okay? This is not something that came out of nowhere or was like completely unexpected. He did not do a 180. Like, he was always like this. He was always an opportunistic grifter who's more interested in the money as opposed to like actually fixing social problems, right? Like this is the big problem when it comes to like the conservative movement at this point. This is the problem when it comes to MAGA. This is the problem with like getting removing illegals from the country, with defending white men, right, defending like the country and like what it stands for, our values and stuff like that. Like the problem is a lot of people will come out and advocate for these causes, for these agendas, and then turn around and do nothing. Like in a lot of ways, conservatives benefit more from not actually doing anything about the problem. In like the quartering's case, by firing up a live stream and complaining about some rando doing something at an event, like that gets him way more attention and money, income, than like someone actually doing something about like real problems, essentially. Like Jeremy doesn't want the problems fixed because then he wouldn't have anything to talk about. Like that's just the reality when it comes to like most of these people, is that they don't have any real convictions. They don't have any real ability or desire to follow through on what they say they want to accomplish. Like basically everything they do is just a giant grift for money, attention, and influence. And Jeremy's problem is that so much of what he does is insincere. Like it's not about like actually having a voice in the our country. It's not a matter of being an influence. Like it's not like he doesn't actually want to drive like real political change or like influence people's thinking. Like what he wants to do is just sit back, get fat, and just complain about things, and not even very well at that. Like he is one of those people, one of those post Gamergate internet grifters who realized that there was a trend of like discontent among individuals, and he marketed himself to them, by passing himself off as like one of them. by passing himself off as a conservative who was just sick and tired of like the woke SJW cucks, just as much as anyone else. That was how he built himself, and like it's become more and more obvious over time. The more you watch this guy, that like he doesn't actually hold any of these positions. It's entirely just a grift. And that's the problem, I think, that a lot of these people are having, is that like as people become stronger in their convictions, more and more people like Jeremy who just want to like sit around and do nothing, they look increasingly unappealing. In fact, in a lot of ways, they are like massive boat anchors around this movement going anywhere or making any positive changes, or like, really putting forward like, more base traditionalists, on the front. Like, I would rather Jeremy just fuck off and someone better to take his place. And I've always been saying that. Like, I've been saying that like long before like this situation arose. Like, it was very obvious to me that like the Quartering and most of the Gamergate era grifters were just like posers who were doing it for money and attention. Like, we needed real serious like people, advocating for our causes and like, making changes and like influencing policy and like, getting people elected or getting people like, dismissed. But, we need to be like, sending people to prison, like there's a lot of things we need to be doing. And like the Quartering has done absolutely none of that. He has not been that significant when it comes to like the changing cultural trends. Like, Jeremy has done nothing of value. Like, he has done nothing of interest. Like, the thing I most remember him for was being on like the Boulder stream with like Jarbo, okay, with Mundane Matt. That's where I was first introduced to him, and it's just very obvious in those kind of situations. Like, the kind of people he rolls with, the kind of people that he says and does, like he spends time with, the kind of like audience he's cultivated, that's just the reality of people like the Quartering, is that like at his core he's just a talentless bum who lucked into a trend and has milked it for all it's worth. The entire movement has moved past him, moved past his ilk, and now he's just desperately trying to maintain the relevancy he had from 10 years ago. And I think this is the reason why he was so anxious to get the coffee business off the ground, is because he knew that long term, the YouTube grift was not going to maintain his lifestyle. It was not sustainable. Like, he always knew it would bottom out eventually, which is why he branched out into this business, into this industry, and it just ended up costing him like money. It ended up just like being a complete like waste. I do think it's very interesting to kind of see like how consistent a lot of these like YouTubers like act and behave, how they make a lot of money, start acting entitled, start making demands of their audience, and they don't really like accept their lot in life. Okay. In Jeremy's case, like, he needed to become a more serious political commentator. He needed to know more about what he was talking about. He needed to talk more about niche topics. He needed to become more educated. He needed to like, get more serious people on board. He needed to do something other than what he was doing. And that's something that he just isn't capable of, because if he had any real talent, he never would have fallen into this YouTube grift to begin with.